Rome, 39 AD. The imperial palace stank of horse manure and politics. What Emperor Caligula appointed his stallion Incitatus to the Roman Senate. But the Senate couldn't tell if it was madness. The horse got a marble stall, an ivory dinner plate. This is the story of how one emperor used a horse. By AD 39, the Roman emperor, known as Little Boots, had already survived a mysterious illness that scrambled his brain, and the Roman Senate was about to learn that their emperor's next executive order. Caligula took the throne in AD 37 as Rome's golden boy. He was 25, popular, but something went wrong in AD 39. Caligula got sick, possibly encephalitis, possibly epilepsy. In his place stood a man who declared himself a living god, started sleeping with his own sisters, and developed an obsession with chariot racing. This wasn't just any horse. This was the Secretariat of the ancient world, the thoroughbred that won every race Caligula bet on. We're talking a marble stable, an ivory feeding trough, purple blankets, and in Rome, purple dye cost more than gold. With servants, Suetonius, the Roman historian, writing about 80 years later, claims that Incitatus was invited to dinner parties, where he was served wine from a golden cup. Caligula didn't just wake up one day and decide a horse belonged in the Senate. That kind of unhinged energy takes years to cultivate. Born in AD 12 in Antium, modern Anzio, the beach town where rich Romans vacationed, Gaius Caesar Germanicus grew up in military camps. Soldiers dressed him in a miniature soldier's uniform, complete with tiny boots, caligae in Latin, and the nickname Caligula. Fast forward to AD 37. Caligula inherits the empire at 25. He was the anti-Tiberius, canceling treason trials, recalling political exiles. The Senate breathed a collective sigh of relief for about 18 months. Then AD 39 happened. Ens f a white ip et eps eps. Lead poisoning from those fancy Roman pipes, whatever it was. When he woke up, the charming prince was gone. In his place, he built temples to himself, demanded animal sacrifices, and started dressing as Jupiter. He wore the actual costumes. Imagine your boss showing up to a board meeting in a Superman suit. And the Senate, Caligula hated them now. He forced senators to jog alongside his chariot in their formal robes, executed anyone he suspected of disloyalty. Which brings us back to Incitatus. The horse wasn't just a pet. He was Caligula's champion. Making him a consul wasn't about animal rights. It was the ultimate middle finger to the Senate, a statement so loud it echoed for 2,000 years. I could put a horse in your chair, and you couldn't stop me. He claims in the Lives of the 12 Caesars that Caligula didn't just give Incitatus a fancy stable. The highest elected office in Rome, the position that elder statesmen spent decades clawing their way toward, and Caligula was about to hand it to an animal that ate hay for breakfast. Suetonius reports that Incitatus had a marble stall, not brick, not wood, but carved stone like a senator's tomb. Purple blankets draped over his back, and in Rome, purple dye came from crushed sea snails and cost more per ounce than gold. This horse wore it to sleep. Incitatus had a full house, a staff of human beings whose entire job was to take care of a horse's daily needs. Guests were invited to dinner parties held in the horse's name. They would arrive, make small talk. The horse would receive them. Historians still debate whether Incitatus actually ate the food. Now Cassius Dio, writing about a century later, offers a slightly different version. He claims Caligula The horse as senator line that everyone quotes today is actually a modern mashup of these two accounts. Dio says, "Priest," but the popular imagination ran with it. And honestly, the difference between consul and senator is like arguing whether your boss promoted his dog to CEO or vice president. Modern historians are skeptical, and for good reason. He worked as a court official under Emperor Hadrian, which gave him access to imperial archives, but he also loved a scandalous story. The Incitatus story might have started as a joke, Caligula making a sarcastic comment about appointing his horse to shut up the Senate, and Suetonius reported it as literal fact. He was a living god who executed senators for fun. If he wanted a horse in the Senate chamber, the fact that he didn't actually go through with it doesn't make the threat any less terrifying. Because Incitatus wasn't the punchline. This was pure, calculated political theater. Caligula wasn't insane in the way Hollywood portrays him. He was methodical. He understood that the Roman Senate, once the most powerful body in the Mediterranean, they'd abandoned their ancestors' republic for security and titles. Think about it. If you threaten to replace a senator with a horse, and the senator can't stop you, that's not madness. That's a brutal, humiliating lesson in power dynamics. The horse was the message, the Senate, and Caligula was the teacher who enjoyed failing everyone. Nothing, literally nothing. By AD 40, Caligula had already executed senators without trial, forced them to worship him as a living god, and made them jog in their formal robes alongside his chariot like personal trainers in togas. When the horse rumors started circulating, they didn't protest. They just sat there, hoping the emperor's attention would drift elsewhere, maybe to a new chariot racer. The Senate had become so powerless that they couldn't even object to an animal taking their seats. Chariot racing was Rome's NFL. NBA and Super Bowl rolled into one. The racing factions. Caligula was a fanatic supporter of the Greens, and Incitatus was their undefeated champion. He bet on him. He probably named his pets after him. Elevating Incitatus wasn't just about humiliating senators. It was about saying that a racehorse from his favorite team deserved more respect than Rome's political elite. On January 24th, AD 41, Caligula was walking through a palace corridor on the Palatine Hill. He'd survived illness, conspiracies, and his own worst impulses. Officers Cassius Chaerea and Cornelius Sabinus had been planning this for months. Chaerea had a personal grudge. Caligula mocked his high-pitched voice and gave him humiliating passwords like, "When the emperor passed, Chaerea struck first." Within seconds, Caligula was dead in a pool of blood, and the guards kept stabbing until they were sure. His wife, Caesonia, was killed. His infant daughter, the entire bloodline was erased in minutes. The horse that started it all, Emperor Claudius, Caligula's uncle, the marble stall went. The servants found new jobs. Incitatus himself vanished from history, possibly retired. The horse never became consul. But the message Caligula sent, that power could be absurd, arbitrary, and completely detached from merit. For 1,900 years, the phrase, "making your horse a senator," has survived as history's most durable insult. It outlived the Roman Empire. The joke stuck because it's universal. Every generation has watched some incompetent boss promote their golf buddy or campaign donor to a position they clearly don't deserve. Medieval monks copied Suetonius's manuscripts by candlelight, preserving the scandal for an audience that would read it 1,000 years later and still laugh. Renaissance painters depicted Caligula as a drooling madman surrounded by debauchery. The horse became shorthand for everything wrong with absolute power. The moment when authority detaches from reason, The 1976 BBC series Claudius gave the story a dramatic treatment that cemented it in the public imagination, with John Hurt's Caligula delivering the line like a man who's figured out the ultimate prank. And in the internet age, Incitatus became a meme before memes had a name. Every time a politician appoints an unqualified relative. But here's the most likely truth behind the legend, and it's actually more interesting than the myth. A dark, biting, sarcastic joke aimed directly at the Senate's face. Imagine the scene. A senator is droning on about some procedural nonsense, and Caligula, bored out of his mind, mutters. Suetonius, writing 80 years later, might have picked up a rumor that started as offhand sarcasm and hardened into historical truth. The senators, humiliated and terrified, had every reason to spread the story as proof of insanity, because a mad emperor could be removed. Modern historians lean toward this interpretation. The literal truth is probably that Incitatus was treated like a celebrity racehorse. The actual appointment never happened. The horse never sat in a curule chair or voted on legislation. But the threat was real enough to burn itself into history. Caligula died at 28, stabbed by his own guards in a corridor. The horse that was supposed to become consul ended up living longer than the emperor who tried to make him one. Emperor Claudius sold off the horse's assets to refill the treasury, and Incitatus vanished from the record. The Senate, meanwhile, survived. It kept existing, kept debating, kept pretending it mattered. Some things never change. You can kill an emperor, sell his horse, and erase his bloodline. Incitatus never became a senator.